Our next guest is Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. Tom, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be with you.
So what do you make of the commission that President Biden appointed to look at reforming the Supreme Court?
I think the president is playing with dynamite. It's in one way an effort to kind of stall the extremists in his party that want to blow up our constitutional system by getting into proposing a process that would add members to the Supreme Court just based on political will alone. It would turn us into Chavez's Venezuela, I think, mighty quickly. On the other hand, he is encouraging the progressives by engaging and allowing their argument to be seriously considered. So the commission, on the one hand, wants to kick the can down the road while encouraging and inciting, to use the word of the day, the radical left to keep on pushing for the destruction of our constitutional system.
So you think his intention is to forestall things, but it may backfire on him? Is that what you think?
I mean, who knows? You know, you're kind of reading it. We're all reading this a little bit from the outside. I think some establishment Democrats don't want to destroy our Constitution. But there's this rising extremist wing in the party that is revolutionary, and their target is the Supreme Court of the United States. And this would be a coup against the court if they went through with, for instance, the legislation introduced this week would add 4 justices to the Supreme Court. It's so radical. It just is jaw-dropping.
So what do you think would actually happen if they succeed in getting this through?
They will destroy the legitimacy of the Supreme Court, and if Republicans take over, and that's an if, because their plan is to make it difficult for Republicans ever to take over again, you can bet Republicans will add more justices to the Supreme Court. So at the end of the day, we could have a Supreme Court as big as Congress. And obviously, that's the end of any independent judiciary.
Do you think there's any reasonable recommendations they could come back with, or any reforms that you think would actually be beneficial?
I doubt there will be any reforms, any conservative, anyone concerned about the rule of law approach to constitutional issues could get behind.
So just before the commission was announced, Justice Stephen Breyer, who was a President Clinton appointee, was speaking at Harvard Law School, and he spoke out against expanding the court, saying that it would undermine public trust if the public sees judges as politicians in robes. Do you think right now the public sees Supreme Court justices that way?
Well, you know, Judge Bork, who never made it onto the Supreme Court, a conservative jurist, he talked about the tempting of America, meaning the temptation that judges have to act as politicians and not to apply the law as Americans expect them. And when they cave into that temptation, when they act political, it undermines confidence in the judiciary and it undermines confidence in the court. I think, for instance, the court's failure to grapple with the election controversies were political and undermined confidence in the courts. And that's one way to think about also this effort, this noise about packing the court. It's also a shot across the bow of the conservatives on the court to kind of scare them from doing what they might otherwise do in terms of judicial decision-making.
And what do you think about term limits? Because that's something else that's been talked about, which presumably would require a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, all this would require a constitutional amendment, and there's obviously no grassroots effort to change the judiciary in such ways. Conservatives have been concerned about a judiciary that's moved beyond its traditional powers under the Constitution. But as I said earlier, you know, that's not going to be under discussion. Term limits, obviously, if that had to be changed, that would have to be under the Constitution because at least the federal courts, they generally serve for life. So, you know, the big question is, how is it the court fits in our constitutional system? Is it supreme, or is it one of three co-equal branches of government that has separate powers and doesn't encroach upon the other branches? That's the debate that we ought to be having, but it's not one the left wants to have. They see the court as territory to be conquered in their political remaking and revolutionary remaking of America.
All right, so we have to wrap up, but bottom line, this commission's going to come back in 6 months with a report. What are you expecting?
Oh, I think both sides will be unhappy. I think it will try to thread the needle, and but I think it's a dangerous game that President Biden has been playing, and whatever happens, it's going to provide encouragement and a window of opportunity, as I say, for the extremists to undo our Supreme Court and our constitutional structure.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.